Hi there and welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna show a beginner's tutorial on how to make a simple dog sweater. It requires an addi machine, of course, and that you're able to do some hand knitting. If you want to, it's optional. So this is a sweater I made for my little doggy, a Christmas sweater, and I made it out of a flat panel because she has a pretty awkward body shape. She has a big chest because she's partially hunting dog, so huge lungs, big chest, but she's very skinny for the rest. The stomach is she's very petite. So I thought instead of making in a round, I make it as a flat panel, and then you can adjust it as you like. I made a ribbing in the neck and in the end, because she has a very skinny throat and neck, so to make it stay on her body and not pass over her shoulder, and so she steps out of it, I made a ribbing. This is optional. You can adjust it just by making this part of the neck longer and just let it roll up, or crochet something. It's optional. The positive part about making him like this is if you have a dog with a very huge chest area, you can make this part, that's what you're gonna hand knit, bigger, but this will stay the same. So my dog is very big this way, but she's pretty skinny here. And something you have to think about making dog sweaters is that the leg openings are big enough, because or else they're gonna restrain the forward motion of the front legs, so the dog will have problems doing a trot or just running or moving freely, and it's gonna be uncomfortable to wear clothes. When it comes off the machine, it comes out like one piece like this, and if you have a male dog, you can shorten the seam here so he won't pee on the fabric, and if you have a little girl like me, you can sew it back together even more, and this part will then go over the thigh and keep the groin warm. So I prefer mine pretty long and pretty wide, so it hangs down over the big muscle of the thighs, because that's where they lose a lot of heat. So let's get started. I'm starting with putting on some waste yarn. I'm gonna zoom in a little so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so we're putting on some waste yarn because I want to knit that ribbing at the end and in the neck area, and it's much easier to pick up the stitches when you have a couple of rows of waste yarn in a different color. But you can just start if you like and let both ends roll up if you prefer that instead. That's optional. You gotta try. Oops. My addi is just this morning tired as I am. Again. It's not the perfect yarn, so I bought it cheap on eBay a couple of years ago. I haven't had any use for it, so I thought this is the perfect way, but it's a little loose. But on the other hand, it was cheap, and I don't like the color, I don't like working with it. This one went off. It's good if you have a crochet hook around or any other type of needle hook. You will need it. So I thought this yarn is the perfect to make as a to use this waste yarn because I can just cut it off and throw it away. Oh, my dog was lying on the yarn, that's why it got stuck. He likes to... Hey, step off my yarn, you. He likes to spend time with his mom. He's 10 months old, German Shepherd mix, and he's still a little insecure about stuff, so he likes to hang around. Right, too short. So I've done a couple of rows of waste yarn, I don't know, 4 or 5. I had to add some, it was too short. I'm gonna use this. It's a sock yarn, it's, I don't remember the mix, but it's acrylic wool. And they were supposed to be a pair of socks for my son, but yeah, never turned out. So I rewinded it and I'm gonna make a couple because I have a lot of this yarn. So, for a little boy maybe. Boy dog. And you need to be careful in the beginning, but if you have an addi, you know that. I haven't figured out the rows, how many rows I'm using for my dog, because it depends a little on what yarn you're using. Acrylic tends to stretch together, so you have to think about that. Or pull together, sorry. So if it pulls together too much, the back is going to be very short. This is, I think, 50% wool, so it doesn't stretch that much, and it's a little messy to work with sometimes. The addi doesn't like wool, so I'm not using my counter very much. I use tape measure instead. It's easier. You just have to be careful not to stretch your work when you measure, or else it won't fit when you get it off. So I'm gonna make I don't know, 25 rows maybe. I think that's what she needs for her back, because I'm starting from the tail, this part, and then I want ribbing here so it doesn't roll up, so I have to take away like 2 centimeters to the ribbing. So I'm gonna knit from here till where the arm starts, then I'm gonna decrease some stitches. That's gonna become the arm, and so when I'm getting up here, I'm gonna get back to you and show you how I do that. So I've done a lot of more, not more than 60 rows. I'm used to work with thicker yarn, so I did 60 because I had a call from the dog owner with the measurements, and it's a brother of my dog, but apparently he has a longer back, so I had to make it a little longer. It measures, and when you measure, be careful, don't stretch your work, just lay your measurement tape measure flat. This is 27. I'm gonna make a 3 centimeter ribbing on the end, so you can't knit all the way up unless you want a back that's rolling up. So now we are ready to make the armpits. So I'm gonna zoom in a little to see if you can see what I'm doing. So we're gonna take off the working yarn, and we're just gonna knit in a waste yarn in the first, in my case, in the first 4 stitches, like this, and you just drop it cut off all your working yarn, attach it back, then you can tie these two together a little loosely, because we're gonna use those ends in a minute. Then you knit all the way to the other side, and you save these four. 1, 2, 3, 4. You take off your working yarn again. This time you can just leave it hanging. Then you're gonna knit in some waste yarn in the next 4 stitches. And leave it hanging. Then you put back your working yarn a little earlier than this is preferable, but I want you to see what I'm doing. It won't cooperate with me today. Now, there you go. And you put your yarn back in the feeder. When you go back, we're gonna make one round, and when we come to the other end, we're gonna bind off these 4 stitches, and the next round we're gonna bind off these 4 stitches. So these 8 stitches are just gonna hang loose, because this is gonna be your the armpit, or the beginning of the armpit for the dog. So let's stitch to the other end, or knit, sorry. And now you're gonna lift off these 4 stitches, and you're gonna pull that thread through, and you do the same with the next one. If you don't do this, these are gonna fall off anyway, and they'd be lost. But so that therefore we bind them off temporarily, so we can pick them up later. And either, that's optional, either you knit by hand. I prefer to knit by hand. I like to knit by hand, and I have rheumatism in my fingers, so I need to maintain mobility, so I prefer to hand knit. And then you go back and you pull this out. Oh, sorry, the camera is too close. And then you're going to do the same here. Lift them off. Just simply don't make a big effort with this, because you're going to pull this out anyway eventually, the waste yarn. We'll cut it out. So just do a simple bind off so it stays put. My cat is not so happy with me. He thinks I'm boring talking to myself. So, and now let's see if I can zoom out. Now we come to this piece, so we're gonna knit this piece, and my dog is 12 centimeters from the base of the neck to the back of the elbow. So I'm knitting 12 centimeters, and then I'm gonna make the ribbing by hand. So I get back to you when I'm done. So I'm done with the neck, So I'm gonna measure from the armpit to the end 12 centimeters. And then I like to make it easy for myself by casting on some waste yarn on top of the working yarn. You can just leave it because you're gonna use this for knitting later, or you cut it off and attach new working yarn when you start on this side. Doesn't want to cooperate today. Flimsy yarn won't work along today. Now I got a knot on my fucking yarn. When you're making videos like this, there's always something going wrong. Okay, and I just cut it off, leave it hanging, and then I'm gonna go around. And it will come off by itself. Like this. So this is the neck and this is the back or the butt. So I like to work with these, and the easiest way is just to pick up these stitches. Let's see if I can zoom in a little. You can see it. I can't see my camera when I'm working, but oh, and I'm not used to it, sorry. First video ever, so bear with me. So you pick up these stitches, and with the waste yarn they are very visual, very easy to find. You pick them up all the way and you hand knit just the ribbing. One knit, one purl, one knit, one purl, because it's on it's an even number, so you're gonna turn out with a one too many if you do 2 by 2. So I'll get back to you when I'm done with this. Alright, so my ribbing is done. The tail end of the sweater, and you can make as many as you like. I cast it off with the crochet needle to make it a little loose, because I suck at casting off with ordinary needles. And then I have put back those 8 stitches that we took off for the arm. Or the, let me see if I can zoom again, my wobbly camera. So those four stitches on each side that we have binded off, I put them back on the needles. What you have to think about when you do it like this, if you're not gonna hand knit, because that's the absolute most easy thing to do, you just pick up those 8 stitches and you hand knit all the way up to the neck. What you have to think about is to turn your work inside out when you put them back on, because as you know, when you knit on the addi you have the inside out. So you have to put on one side first, go around one turn, and then put on the other ones. If maybe someone else has a better way to do it, but that's how I do it. And then you knit as many rows as you have here by the neck. I had 12 centimeters. I'm gonna count the rows, and then I'll get back to you. So I done the rows needed to be done to match the other side of the sweater, and now I'm just gonna change yarn just like I did before, and I'll just let my working yarn hang along because I'm gonna use it in a minute for the ribbing. So you cast up with a couple of rows of waste yarn, and then you're gonna have to hand knit or crochet the rest. That's up to you. I hate this yarn. Really difficult to work with. We'll do another one. So it's a little hard to see, but this is, oh, forgot to sew. I'm sorry. Wrong way. So this is gonna be the neck, the back, and this is the front. Now it's twisted a little. When it comes up, you just either you crochet it or you sew it into this edge, and then you pick up all the needles or all the stitches on a round needle, or you do it by hand, one and one, and then sew it together when it's done, and you will have a complete neck. And then you have to sew a little of the stomach together to make it fold around the body. Making them this way is, in my opinion, it's easier. If you have a dog where you don't have the correct measurements or you're not really sure, you can always either stitch up some more, make a bigger seam, and you decrease the circumference of the whole sweater. There are so many possibilities to change your work or to adapt your work if you've done something wrong, or if it doesn't fit. You can always adjust it by making them as a flat panel instead of making them in a round. That fits one size dog depending on what kind of yarn you're using. But here you can make changes, and let's say you have a dog with 3 legs, one front leg missing, then you just don't make an arm or a hole for an arm on that side. You just stitch it all back together, and you make one hole for the other leg, and it will still stay put on the dog without twisting and being an obstacle for the dog to move around inside. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to sew it back together, and I'm going to hand knit the ribbing around the neck. So I'll see you in a minute. So I sewn it back together. I haven't done the ribbing in the neck yet, but this is what it's going to look like from the inside and underneath. So this is the piece we knitted on the machine of the 8 stitches that we put back. If you want it wider, you can just put some stitches in between and increase the width of it. These dogs that I make these for are pretty skinny, so they need just this to keep the chest warm. And also you can knit more rows if you have a dog like mine and the brother of this one who has a big chest area. You just add stitches. Of course the leg hole is going to get a little bigger, but you need that if they have a bigger chest. Then I sewn it together on under the stomach, and I left pretty much of it open because this is for a male, so he doesn't pee on it. So now I'm gonna make a ribbing for the neck, and I'll get back to you when it's done. So I've been knitting the rib for the neck. Now I'm gonna bind off the last stitches, and I prefer to do that with a crochet needle. It gives a softer edge, and you don't there's a chance maybe if you're binding off by hand like me, I can't do it with ordinary needles. I just make it too hard and then I can't get it over the neck. I made numerous socks in my life and then binding them off, and just to discover that I can't wear them because they're too tight. But it's a question of trial and error. You have to find a way that works for you. This one works for me, so oh. Doggy lets me know he's here. I hear you. All right, that's your sweater. Good sized legs. Oh, I forgot something there. Oh, we'll deal with that later. Good sized legs, plenty of room for the dog to move, and the neck is holding it pretty snug around the neck of the dog, or the collar. So we're gonna put it on my dog and see how it fits. See you in a minute. Now, and here's the result. Stanna. As you see, it goes perfectly in between legs. Gonna get a candy because he's so nice. And it fits perfectly around the body. Keeps the stomach warm and the thighs. Could you stand up, honey? It's a little long, but it's not for her, so for her brother, and he's a little longer, so but that's it. It's pretty easy. It takes almost no time to make it. The yarn I'm using here it's a Swedish brand. It's produced here in Sweden, and it's self-ribbing yarn. This is my other dog, and here's my table. I don't know if you can order it outside the country, but I believe you can order it. Yeah, you could order it from Sweden to where you live. It's called Raggi. I will write it down in my comment line below if anyone is interested. This is also the same manufacturer. Pink. Little poor lighting here. It's difficult to see. Here, like this. So, and I had a little tip that I came up with. Sometimes when you're knitting in the round and you need tension on your fabric, I had some yarn that I tried knitting yesterday. Let me show you. It's this kind of thin, bulky yarn, and it sticks to itself. There's a wool in it, so it tangles up a bit. If you're knitting in the round and you have enough knitted so that you can pull it together with a elastic band underneath, one easy way to put some weight on it is to take an old sock like I did and put rice in it so it becomes heavy, tie a knot around it, and just lay it on top. And as you go and the knitting becomes longer, you just pull up the elastic and put back the sock with rice. So that's my tip for the day. I hope you had some help getting new ideas or learning how to knit these sweaters. I will make more videos as time goes by. I just need to come up with some ideas. So good luck and ask me anything. Bye!